How can you be so out of touch with reality? And I am now going to obliterate John Oliver and Marc Maron. Full disclosure, there's aspects of these guys that I like. They're both comedians, as am I. I knew both of them. I didn't know Marc Maron very well. I knew John Oliver better. I was actually on a couple of shows with him at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Not like we did shows together, like it was a show where they just have a bunch of comedians, hung out with him and laughed in the green room. And this is years ago. He and I started our shows. He started his HBO show. I started Redacted Tonight within like 2 weeks of each other. Now, of course, mine has now been destroyed by U.S. government sanctions and censorship. His continues on. I think he does important episodes. There are episodes of his that are important. He will also do ridiculous propaganda topics, such as his one on China, his one on Venezuela, his one on Jill Stein. So John Oliver has done crazy propaganda segments as well. Marc Maron clearly has a thing against me. I'm not going to get into it really, but I've never been on his show. I met him like 3 times, and he clearly knew who I was and clearly did not like me. But so let's get to this interview between the two of them. This was just the other day.
I wouldn't say cynical. I would say, straight up, relatively hopeless. Mm-hmm. And also, like, I enjoy your show because, it's weird. I was able to make the transition. Like Rachel Maddow contextualized things for me, and then I guess she decided she'd had enough of that. Something. I don't know what happened. Mm-hmm. She's doing radio shows about Spiro Agnew.
Okay, so how amazing is it to have someone who is very smart. Marc Maron is very smart. They're both incredibly smart. I mean, John Oliver went to like Oxford or something. He still thinks in 2024, is that the year we're in? In 2024, he thinks that Rachel Maddow has it right. This is a woman who repeated every single falsehood about Russiagate for years and years and years, like 4 straight years, 5 nights a week or whatever, just endlessly garbage about Russiagate. All false. All have collapsed. Every tenant, and I've gone through them multiple times, but every tenant of Russiagate has collapsed. Even Robert Mueller, he indicted 14 people and then dropped them, indicted 14 people from the Internet Research Agency, which was clearly a clickbait farm if you look at the photos that they effing posted. He indicted them and then quietly dropped all the indictments because the judge basically said, so you have proof, right? And he was like, oh, about the whole evidence thing, and dropped the indictments. Rachel Maddow repeated and parroted the Christopher Steele documents, which were utterly false. Dossier, which we now know was funded by the Democratic Party to create this dossier on Trump that has been completely debunked. Every level, all the bots, the Russian bots that Rachel Maddow parroted again and again, we know that that was not a real thing. We know Hamilton 68, the so-called dashboard that reveals what Russian bots are doing. We know that was fake. We know that even the head of CrowdStrike, the organization that said that it was Russian hackers that hacked into the DNC, even he said they didn't have proof that Russian hackers had done anything. I mean, just every level, and I've only touched on 5 of 100 ways that Russiagate collapsed. And here you have Marc Maron continuing to say Rachel Maddow had it right, and she was the one who gave me all the answers. I wish she was doing more things because I need her to provide information. How can you be so out of touch with reality? These two are lamenting that people are out of touch with reality. It's like, how? You are. You're. It's actually you. Turns out it's you. Did you know? It's you. These two both occasionally make good points. I mean, Marc Maron is far less focused on topics of the day, right? But when Marc Maron interviews these people, he makes, and he's had many liberals on. He's had Rachel Maddow on, Chris Hayes on, he's had Obama on while he was president, I believe. He never digs deeper than the liberal view of the world. Than Obama was trying to make things right in the world, and he just couldn't do it. Oh, that little fella. He tried so hard and he just couldn't fix the world. And during that interview, this is one of the most upsetting things about Marc Maron, is he has an interview with Obama, and he never asks anything harder of Obama. This is hour-long interview, and Marc Maron never asked anything tougher than, so how do you deal with all the hate? Huh? Howdy. It was almost like a schoolboy crush. How do you deal with all the haters, though? And here's the thing. I also have a little inside knowledge. It's not even that inside. That Marc Maron at one time started to understand the machinations of this world because he had a radio show on Air America and he had Chris Hedges on often. And he knew Chris Hedges. And Chris, I've talked to Chris about this. Chris knew him. And yet now, Mark has gone back to this, I'm going to live in the fairy tale land that Joe Biden and Obama are trying to fix everything. Rachel Maddow wants to fix everything. And the Republicans are just the bad guys and the other side is the good guys. Dude, how have you given in to that ridiculous theater? And nowadays, Marc Maron won't even have Chris Hedges on his show. They knew each other well. And why won't you have him on the shows? Because you're afraid that he'll bust up this ridiculous worldview you have? As I do these leecamp destroys segments, by the way, this is like my 4th or 5th. You can look at the playlist on youtube.com/@realleecamp or youtube.com/moment of clarity. These liberal personalities that are not actually getting to the root of the system, not actually talking about what capitalism is and how it works and why it has everyone in cages and why it involves endless war.
Like, oh, it's been bad before. Yeah, but it's different kind of bad now because, the culture has become shallow, that these machines that we hold in our hands all day are just, trauma mills.
I totally agree. And I love that he's saying that, that culture has become shallow. Absolutely. With the devices we hold in our hands, trauma mills, true. But the shallowness that you're lamenting, that you've directed your ire towards, he's also part of it. He's part of that shallowness, that unwillingness to dig beneath the two-party system, to dig into what the capitalist system is, to dig in to what the U.S. empire is, and actually reveal its machinations, actually reveal how the systems work, and actually reveal how you could bring down or take out of power the bad guys, by his view, right? The Trumps or the Steve Bannons. You can bring them out of power. And what do you know? More people are struggling than ever, like before. It doesn't change things. There's still, Obama was bombing in 7 countries. Joe Biden, if you include Palestine as a country, is bombing in 6 countries. Endless number of bombs dropped around the world. It doesn't change under these Trump, Biden, Obama. And Marc Maron and John Oliver, as 2 very smart human beings who in some way or another have devoted their lives to revealing what's going on here in this world, should dig a little goddamn deeper. I mean, obviously it could be, if you wanted to be truly cynical, that they understand how the bread is buttered. If you are going to go outside of the capitalist system in your criticisms, if you are going to call out the duopoly, if you're going to call out the inverted totalitarian system in which we live, if you are going to call out the entirety of corporate America, not just 1 or 2 here or there, then you are not going to be on most of these channels. John Oliver does better than most because he's on HBO that is funded not by advertiser dollars, but instead by subscriptions. So he does go after a lot of corporations, but he doesn't dig down to what capitalism is. He doesn't dig down to what the American empire is. Instead, he parrots Reuters propaganda about Venezuela. He did a whole segment, this was several years ago, but because I don't watch all his stuff, I don't know every segment he's done, but he did a whole segment a few years ago on Venezuela, on how awful Maduro is. Never really got into, I can't remember if he had one sentence on it or not, but never really got into how the struggling that goes on in Venezuela is 100% due to the U.S. economic war in Venezuela. Without U.S. economic war in Venezuela, there would not be struggling in Venezuela. Now, John Oliver does dig deeper on some topics, but he never really gets to the real stuff. He just always seems to skirt over the top. Here's an example of how John Oliver will do a great job in a lot of regards and then just not want to get to that last level. All right, this is a clip from his excellent at times segment on dollar stores. And dollar stores there's like 3 of them, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, and they're horrific companies and they're destroying America in more ways than one. He focused on how they're like bad stores and they look like shit and people don't get paid well. I focused on how they destroy like areas, like they go in, they sell everything for a little bit cheaper. All the other stores go to business. It's like Walmart. It's like the Walmart model, but a little different. But I also spent some time, even though his segment was far longer than mine, spend some time on how, guess what this comes down to? This is capitalism. This is how it works.
Right about the numbers there. The median compensated employee for Dollar General makes around $18,000 a year. And a report 2 years ago found that 92% of Dollar General staff was making less than $15 an hour. That is a higher percentage than every other company they surveyed. On top of that, lawsuits and press reports have repeatedly documented Dollar General severely restricting the total hours it allocates in a week to non-managers, and then expecting store managers who are salaried to cover the rest without overtime.
I wanted to show that to just say, like, this is deeper than a lot of people will dig, right? And that's good. That's why I think his stuff is better than most. But he has 30 minutes, is that how long it is, or something like that? A 30-minute video on the harm that dollar stores do across America. Never mentions capitalism. The only time the word capitalism comes up is when he's reading signs that angry employees have put on the front of dollar stores, and one of them said, sorry, the store is closed today because we're not getting paid at all. Capitalism will kill this country, or something like that. So him reading that sign, so really it was the worker that said that, not him, was the entire mention in a 30-minute piece on how dollar stores are killing America. He never gets to what the real systemic problem is. This is the race to the bottom. The cheapest possible store that pays employees and treats employees the worst, pays them the least and treats them the worst. That is the store that will do the best. And dollar stores are rocketing. They're becoming huge. They are decimating the land. But this is systemic. It's not about dollar stores. It's about, this is how capitalism works. It is a race to the bottom, a race to destroying lives, to putting out the cheapest, most toxic products and destroying communities. And John Oliver never gets to those systemic problems. He just skirts the top and keeps running.
This is a different beast.
Totally.
This beast
It's all coming at you.
Will eat your bulletin messages.
Yeah, and it'll eat your brain.
Hey, the beast they're talking about is disinformation.
Back into your
Yeah,
face.
oh, absolutely. You're just 3 clicks away from being algorithmed into psychosis.
Yes, and I don't know that it's that people have got better at disinformation. I think it's just we are so much weaker.
The point is they're high-fiving and agreeing, right? Oh, the problem is disinformation. And it's like, by lying through omission, John Oliver he's disinformation even when he's not, like in the dollar store clips. He's also full-on propaganda when it comes to other countries, Venezuela, China, or even just Jill Stein, full-on disinformation, full-on propaganda. Marc Maron, when he does these interviews with like Obama and just completely ignores stuff, is disinformation. Marc Maron, when he's celebrating Rachel Maddow, who has been proven wrong and 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 wrong again, that's highlighting disinformation, celebrating disinformation. They're angry about disinformation while they're promoting disinformation. I mean, they also, especially Marc Maron, will talk about Biden or the Democrats as if they're the good guys. Well, Biden and the Democrats are nothing but disinformation. You ever watch the White House press secretary? Nothing but disinformation. You ever watch the National Security Secretary, John Kirby? Loads of disinformation. I mean, this is just disinformation. So, yes, it's not like Marc Maron's coming on his show and saying Cuba has acoustic weapons and they're attacking U.S. diplomats. He's not usually pushing out the disinformation, but he's celebrating those who do. To me, that is a major problem. It is hypocritical, breathtakingly hypocritical.
Like I have a hard time talking about certain things. It's taken me months to figure out how to address Israel on stage. You know, and
to me, that's so maddening. That may be something I'm more angry about in their discussion than anything else. It took you months to figure out how to discuss a genocide. Just yell genocide. Here, I'll help you, Mark. Go up on stage and go, genocide. There, that's it. You did it. Wow. Congrats. Awesome. You go get him. And I know he's Jewish, I'm Jewish, but you can be Jewish and have been to Israel, as I have, and still understand this is genocide. This is ethnic cleansing. The idea that it's difficult to talk about is ridiculous. It is not difficult to tell the truth on this subject. And John Oliver actually did watch his Israel video. He did do something that I like, which is a little bit of digging deeper. John Oliver made the point again and again that you cannot assume all of Israel, every civilian in Israel, every person in Israel endorses this and is the same as the Israeli military. And you cannot assume that everybody in Gaza is the same as Hamas militants. But he certainly does not call it a genocide. And he also does this kind of false equivalency where it's like, oh, Hamas is this and Israel's that, and Israel's harmed Gazans and Hamas has harmed it. It's not equivalent. This is a immensely powerful military genociding a people, killing over 28,000 people, 100,000 wounded, dead, or missing. 70% women and children. So the false equivalent thing is maddening. And he actually, in his segment, John Oliver's segment, did a kind of expert job of dodging, actually addressing, a masterful job, not even saying like, Israel's immensely powerful and they're destroying these people, killing and murdering all these people. He kind of dodges it throughout. And he actually spends a moment in the video going, look, my job is not to give you a history lesson. My job is not to tell you what had led up to this point. And it's like, yeah, it kind of is. If you're going to do a segment on is it, but he's using that to avoid saying what Israel is, which is an apartheid, oppressive state.
And here, I'm wary to sort of even ponder it out loud because of my lack of education about the situation.
You don't, Mark, you don't need to be educated to know that it's genocide. Just
in terms of historically, and I don't want to be co-opted or used by either side for, as an example.
He apparently doesn't realize or doesn't care he's being, not just by me, but I think others listening to this probably use him as an example of ignorance, of pleading ignorance, which is not okay in a genocide. It wasn't okay during the Holocaust, not okay now to plead ignorance about genocide. Anyway, he then kind of masterfully ducks away from Israel and asks John Oliver a tangential question that does not revolve around Israel. He says something like, how do you come up to speed on topics like this? And it gives John Oliver the breath he needs, the room he needs to not address Israel at all. Which, amazing to see. It's masterful to see an interviewer bring up Israel, Gaza, claim ignorance. I don't know what's going on. Who knows? What's the deal? And then ask a question that allows them both to stop talking about Israel's genocide. That's just a little taste of what you get with Marc Maron and John Oliver. And I hope you enjoyed this segment of me destroying John Oliver and Marc Maron. Okay, so if you like that segment and you like when I break apart the propaganda, the garbage from various people, then it's on my rumble.com/leecamp. It's also a playlist at youtube.com/moment-of-clarity. And by the way, if you think you got 38 cents and you want all of the awesome perks, then join my locals page. It's the red button on Rumble. It says join Lee. When you get to that page, scroll down to become a subscriber instead of become a member. Become a subscriber, and it's $6 a month. I'd love for you to give more, but if that's all you got, $6 a month, and you get my book, Dangerous Ideas. You get my live streams, whatever you want. You get extra segments all the time. You get to post whatever you want on the community. So the community is awesome. And by the way, everybody locals, you rock. I love you, and I can't do this without you.